Now we're going to look at network solutions. We're going to look at the supply chain planning. We normally refer to it SCP. So let's look at this. One of the key requirements of any SCP is for flexibility to be built into the system. It really is the idea of incorporating a large set of pre-existing network characteristics. For that flexibility, you want to be able to build it in. You need to have it communicated from beginning to end because the people that are loading and unloading vehicles, they need to be part of regular meetings on a regular basis to know what's going on. If you're going to have a change coming in, you're going to change a dock and bring some toxic waste in or whatever. You want to make certain you're talking to everybody so nobody makes a mistake, drops a barrel of who knows what, and sets off an alarm, and you have to shut down part of the plant. You really have to pay attention to what's going on. If you don't, you may have somebody hurt or may cause lots of damage. It could be also that you're unloading something and there's leakage in there. Do you have a plan for that? What are your plans there? And are the plans communicated to the people that are out there that are actually doing the physical work? Are you listening to the people doing the work to make certain if they bring something forward that you're listening to them to sit down to see if you can fix the problem right away instead of waiting 2 or 3 weeks and then it grows and grows and grows. So a couple of things to work in here. Customer specific service level requirements. Sometimes, if you got a giant customer out there, you want to give them special treatment. And maybe instead of a 97% fill rate, it's 100% for them, including stripping stuff out of somebody else's order if you have to. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to make sure you maintain that account. Look at the existing warehouses. Don't build one unless you need one. So the expansion of existing warehouses, sometimes you add another segment on it, just one more section, and all of a sudden the world is a better place. And you can have all your stuff inside instead of having some stored outside. So you have that. Look at the specific flow patterns. Are you having truck drivers going nuts trying to back in their trailer because nobody sat there and thought enough to have enough of an apron in front of them or behind them in the process for loading up? Warehouse to warehouse flow, how is that working? Are people transferring stuff? Does it take too long? Are you at the industry average? Are you above it? Are you really that top mark, that really niche? And are you the one that everybody looks to because you're doing it right? Look at the production and bill of materials, making certain you're maximizing that process as well. This list here is actually a pretty general list, but quite frankly, it is specific and spot on. So pay attention to this one in case you're ever in that field in that area trying to redevelop a site that's out there. Inventory has multiple different forms, but here's the three main ones. You have a raw material inventory, you have a work in process inventory, and a finished product inventory. There's sub breaks down between the different categories within each one of them, but each one of them pretty much will fit into one of these categories for what you have inside your facility. The objective, you want to manage the inventory because you overall want to reduce system-wide costs. Everybody wants to kill inventory if they can possibly do that or transfer the cost to somebody else in the process. Just in time works fine for that, but sometimes just in time doesn't work, especially now. Once upon a time, just in time was the rage, and then we had the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden we got 24 feet of shelving space at Walmart with no toilet paper, even though there's plenty of toilet paper at the warehouse and you had all that shelf ready for it. The problem was the truckers couldn't get the trucks to drive it because they were sick and they were staying home, all kinds of problems that way. That was a supply chain issue. Toyota had 127,000 vehicles sitting over in Virginia. They couldn't ship because of the fact that they had a supply chain problem with computer chips for them. We addressed a lot of those issues, but who knows if they're going to come back again. And if it comes back, are you going to be the one that fulfills all your customer orders and be in the top? That's why you want to have good, solid safety stock. And that being said, what does that mean? Sometimes you don't rely on just in time. Sometimes you do just in time and you do safety stock and see how far it is and what is the worst case scenario for how big your safety stock should be. So pay attention to those things. What happens if there's a gigantic rainstorm? Do you have a problem with if you can't get the loads from the East Coast to the West Coast? Are you set up for that? Those are questions you need to talk about and have dialogue as to how big your safety stock is. It should be strategic to make certain that people think that you're the go-to place for the stuff because you want to be first on their list of choice as a company, that you're the one that always provides the goods whenever they ask for it. A good message or question about managing it is how complex is it, and where do you keep the safety stock? Does every warehouse have it, or do you have a distributed safety stock between 3 or 4 different warehouses? And that way you can exchange it if you have something in a crisis in one area, so you can start filling those orders that are above your optimization. Let's say you're 95% or 97%. You can't fill the five. Can you cross fill them from another warehouse? If you can pull that miracle off, you're going to be the hero. So look at the optimization. The important challenge in any design project, evaluate the impact on the entire organization, on inventory in general, because inventory can kill a company because your capital is all tied up on stuff that's sitting on shelves, undistributed and unsold. You want to make certain you have the optimal inventory because of the fact it costs you money. So be careful. Yes, I'm preaching the aspect of safety stock, safety stock, safety stock, except there's always a cost for safety stock. Try to keep the inventory close to the customers, hold some in every location, and hold as much raw materials as possible, because that is the cheapest part of your inventory cost. And if you can always turn the machine on and start processing that raw material and getting it turned to finished product. So it depends how fast it is. But if you don't have any raw material and everything else is geared, you put yourself in a bind. So pay attention to where you are on the raw material, because that's your first step to all success in making the product at the end. It's going to depend what you have. When you start integrating different things and the positioning and the networking, low inventory turns, you want to have your inventory turning faster and faster. It keeps it fresh. If you have any type of products that could be disposable, or it could sit down and get stale because of due dates or whatever on the labels, you have a problem. You have to have a high inventory turnover. You need to have consistent, really, service levels, and you need to expedite shipments. Sometimes, if it's a crisis, you have to be able to respond to crisis, and occasionally you have to eat the cost if it's your mistake. It just depends as to what you're talking about. Demand uncertainty is a critical factor in the high variability, low volume products. Those are always a pain because of the fact if it's low volume and all of a sudden there's a run on them, you're stuck with empty shelving. So you have that, you want to take advantage of risk pooling where you're actually bringing multiple warehouses together. So you have really a much better safety stock because of the fact that you're consolidating warehouses. We call this a pull strategy. The book talks more about that. You also have a push strategy, and that's for the low variability, high value products. We call this really your long tail items because of the fact that these are niche products a lot of times. The focus is on economy of scale and transportation costs. If you got a series of teeny tiny little items that could be better handled in a glorified pickup truck or a step van in the process for delivery instead of a full-blown truck. But those things, not all companies have them. It depends how you're set up in the process. So position the products close as possible to consumers to reduce that transportation cost. But of course, everybody wants that. That's called a push strategy. So have a supply chain master planning. It's the process of coordinating and allocating production and distribution strategies and resources to maximize profit and minimize system cost. The core of system cost is inventory. You have to pay attention to the level and also how you allocate the products, trying to fill all the niches. And that's part of the job of supply chain management, making certain the goods are there to be distributed quickly to the customer, the end user, that you have for your organization, and that you can turn over the inventory as fast as possible, because the more you turn it over, the more profit you can make, and you also get rid of the stale products in the process. Find the right balance between production and transportation, those costs, and that requires some flexibility. The flexibility may be different types, different methodologies of delivery. It depends how big you are. Can you afford to have an airplane that you can ship on? So how close are you to the airport? If that's the case, if you have a rail car, are you located near a railroad? Can you actually have a box car in your factory to load in that process? Think about the different opportunities we have. So facility locations, plant, distribution center, demand points. It's going to depend what you have available to you, what kind of transportation resources. If it's trucking, freeways, if it's rail, are you close to freeways and a rail yard in the process? Are you close to freeways, rail yards, shipping by ship and planes? So the perfect place might be on the coast in the process. So think about that as an opportunity. Product and product information, production line information, all of this, by the time you're all done, toss it into create your demand forecast and see what you're doing with it. Sourcing strategies, where should each product be produced during the planning horizon? Are your raw materials there? Your supply chain master plan. What are the quantities, shipments, size, storage required? You have by product, location, time period. So where you're in the whole process of your supply master chain plan, think about the aspect of, do you have bottlenecks in the system, or in the process, do you have some way to identify the bottlenecks early in the planning process? This is where computer simulations actually do a big help. Look at the tactical planning tools that have the ability to demand plans and resource utilization to maximize the profit. So network design, look at the aspect of years, and groupings in the process. This will help you long term to have a best network possible for your success and your companies.